Hi, I'm Neil Schrader of Whitecap Kayak, and I'm here at beautiful Upson Lake in northern Wisconsin, just south of the Apostle Islands, a most excellent place for sea kayaking. And I'm here today to walk through a demonstration on the use of a paddle float and how it can help you get back in your kayak. I'm going to show a number of versions of this or ways of doing this. And I do that because, like I say, it's nice to have a number of tricks in your bag. Sometimes one will work for better for one person than another person, and sometimes one way will work better in different conditions. Also, I could find a young, agile, gymnastic-like person to do this for us, and it would make it look really easy. Uh, Clumsy self here, I'm going to do it. And so why I say that is it didn't come easy for me, and it took some practice. So I encourage you that with some practice, likely, you can find one of these ways of using a paddle float to help you rescue yourself in the event that you fall out of your kayak. Let's get started on the water.
Let's say instead of being on the water, you find yourself in the water. Well, hold on to your paddle and hold on to your kayak. You can put one leg in the cockpit so the kayak doesn't blow away. Fetch the paddle float, put it on the tip of your paddle and blow it up. And if your kayak is light enough and short enough, you can use the paddle float for buoyancy and lift it in the air and get the water out. The first method I'm going to show is starting behind the cockpit and behind the paddle. You hoist yourself up on the back deck and put the front leg over the paddle, hooking your ankle. Then replace that first leg with the second leg, hooking the ankle, and then replace that second leg with the first arm. Finally, the last arm as you twist yourself in. Let's look at it in slow motion. This is starting behind the paddle is a little easier for people who have a hard time hoisting themselves up. Put that first leg on. Once my second leg is on, I can put my first leg in the cockpit. Then same thing with that second leg. Once my first arm is on, I can put that second leg into the cockpit. Then I can keep twisting, putting my last arm on, always keeping the weight on that side. Second, let's do it from in front of the paddle alongside the cockpit. This works a little bit better if you're able to jump up. You can use the paddle yet with your leg, putting this first leg in, which didn't have to go onto the paddle, while the second leg then goes in. Their arms go onto the paddle, much like this last part of the first method from behind the paddle. Let's watch this in slow motion. Hoist yourself up. For this method, it helps to be able to jump up a little higher. Some people can jump up much easier than I can, and you can jump up, just put both legs basically into the cockpit. For me, I like to use the paddle for at least the one leg, so I am one step ahead of the other method in that one leg goes straight into the cockpit while the other leg goes on the paddle, then turns into the cockpit, and just like the last part of the first method, I keep twisting in, holding my weight over the paddle float. Let's look at a third method of using a paddle float. Attach your paddle behind the cockpit, and this will be the heel hook method. For this, I lay back, put that outside leg in as a heel hook rescue, and hoist myself up as I straighten my leg out, keeping my weight onto the paddle. Let's look at this in slow motion. Once again, I start in front of the paddle, and it helps to secure the paddle under the deck lines on this. I lay on my back, and then I put my outside leg in the cockpit while I'm holding on to the opposite arm to the paddle on that side, but my arm from the same side that my leg goes in, I reach over to the other side, and I straighten that leg, and I roll in, bringing my second leg in as I roll in, and I'm in place. Let me show you a fourth way of using a paddle float to help you get back into your kayak. This is essentially what's called the back deck scramble or cowboy self-rescue. Here the paddle float just gives you some buoyancy to hold on to that side, especially in rougher conditions. You can have some stability, and especially if you keep the weight towards that side, especially this last part of getting your bottom into the seat and your legs in, it gives you that extra stability so that the waves don't knock you over. It's a convenient way to brace. And let me show you a fifth way to use the paddle float to get back into your kayak. This would be using a stirrup. Not often used anymore, but sometimes can come in handy. You'll need a 10 to 12 foot loop of rope or webbing. Get that out and reach over and under your kayak and place it on the paddle over the other side, and then bring it under the kayak and wrap some loops over the paddle on your side until you form a little loop that you can use as a step. You'll have to make sure the rope is off your foot when you go in, but it helps to step up on that and bring yourself up into the cockpit. And finally, a sixth way to use your paddle float. This would be the re-entry and roll. Now, you don't have to have a successful roll, but it does help to have a good hip snap. So position the paddle alongside, walk into your cockpit, then take it, do a little sweep and a hip snap, and you're up. Let's look at that in slow motion. I position my paddle and paddle float on the side of the kayak that I'm on. I hold on to the cockpit and the paddle with the near side hand, and the other hand I reach over to the other side of the cockpit. And I like looking towards the stern, and I put my feet right into the seat, and then I walk myself into the cockpit till my bottom's in place, my feet are on the foot pegs, and do my sweep and my hip snap. Those are 6 ways to use a paddle float to help you get back into your kayak in the event you find yourself in the water. These all take practice. Try the different methods and find out what works best for you. You also may find one works better in different circumstances. Hopefully this has been helpful. So get out, have fun, be safe, and always keep learning.